did it. We're live, and I did it, and I didn't have the commercial twice. It's all good. Welcome, your backup plan tribe. This is so awesome. I can't believe how I had one live video this morning and another one this afternoon. It just happens to work that way. So I'm so happy to bring you out to another live stream of a real life person and a real life story. And you're really, really going to appreciate this one. So if you are new here, my name is Tina Ginn. I am an emergency preparedness coach, a best-selling author of In the Blink of an Eye. I am a financial expert and an app developer of Your Backup Plan app. And I'm located here in beautiful Vancouver, BC. I guess you can see it a little bit there. So if you haven't liked or shared or subscribed to our channel, please do. I got it right. Somewhere down there, the subscribe button, and the like button is also there with a bell, so you get notified of any coming live videos or uploaded videos that we share. So thank you, listeners, for coming on today. Thank you so very much. I interview real life people each and every week with their real life stories to share with all of you. To share on our podcast, to share on our live stream. So if you haven't liked or subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. We also share sometimes things on that you wouldn't see on the podcast, sometimes on the podcast that you won't see on the YouTube channel. Please give this video a thumbs up. Like, share, and subscribe. Share it with your family, friends that you love and care about. I'd really, really appreciate that. And I'm sure that our guest, Terry Tucker, who's from Denver, is also going to love that as well. He's got a lot to tell us, everybody, a lot to tell us about his bout with cancer and what that journey has looked like for him. Your Backup Plan app puts your life all in one place in case of any unpredictable circumstance while taking that painful aftermath out of a tragedy. That's what we're here for, especially during COVID. Things have changed our norm life to this is our new normal life. And I really think it's imperative that we all get better prepared for the unexpected, as well as to talk about it freer. That's why we call this podcast Talking Taboo, because I really think about talking about death, talking about sickness is sort of a taboo in our culture, and it shouldn't be, because things happen and we have to learn how to manage those storms and what that looks like for each and every one of us. It doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you as well. All of Terry's friends and family it has affected as well. So I want to thank my German listeners, because you are kicking ass when it comes to who's listening to my shows. Meine deutsche Freunde sind unserem Podcast willkommen. Wenn Sie Kommentare haben, können Sie gern Fragen stellen. Also, danke für deine Freundschaft. So thank you, German friends, for coming on board and sharing, liking our shows each and every week. I'd like to bring Terry on. He has some very interesting journey about his cancer, and I'm excited to bring him on, tell us what he's learned, and to really look at the end game, everybody, because that's what he's all about. And I'm going to bring him on and introduce you. There's Terry.
Hey, Tina, how you doing?
This is Terry Tucker, and he is a founder of motivationalcheck.com. He is author of Sustainable Excellence. He's out of the Denver area. I'm so lucky to have you come on our show today. And I really appreciate your courage and your outspokenness about this difficult topic that a lot of us have had to endure, especially during COVID. So could you tell us, Terry, about your journey and what that's looked like for you?
Sure. So in 2012, I was a high school basketball coach in Texas, and I had a callus break open on the bottom of my foot, right below my third toe. And I didn't think a lot of it initially because, as I said, being a coach, you're on your feet a lot. And after a few weeks, when it didn't heal, I went to a podiatrist, a foot doctor friend of mine, and he did the basic stuff. We'll give you some padding for your shoes and things like that. And when that didn't work, he took an X-ray and he said, I think you've got a little cyst in there, and I can cut it out. And he did, and he showed it to me. It was a little gelatin sac with some white fat in it. Nothing to be concerned about. No dark spots, no blood, nothing like that. But he sent it off to pathology just to make sure. Well, 2 weeks later, I get a call from him. And as I said, he was a friend of mine. And the more difficulty he was having talking, the more scared I became, until he finally just laid it on the line. He said, Terry, I've been practicing for 25 years as a foot specialist, and I've never seen this form of cancer. I think you should go to MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston and be treated there. So I did. And I went to MD Anderson. I had 2 surgeries, one to remove the tumor on the bottom of my foot, the other to remove all the lymph nodes in my groin. And when I healed, I was put on a weekly injection of a drug called interferon. Now, interferon for me was a horrible, nasty, debilitating drug. And I took these weekly injections for almost 5 years before the medicine became so toxic to my body that ended up in the intensive care unit with a fever of 108 degrees. But every week that I took those injections, I had flu-like symptoms for 2 to 3 days every week after each injection. So imagine having the flu every week for 5 years. And that's what I went through just to keep the disease from coming back. It wasn't a treatment that was going to cure me or do anything like that. My doctor used to describe it as kicking the can down the road. That's all we're trying to do with this therapy. So when the disease was stopped, that was 2017. The disease came back 2008, or excuse me, not when the drug was stopped, that was 2017. 2018, the disease came back and I had my left foot amputated. 2019 came back again. I had 2 more surgeries on my leg. And then last year, an undiagnosed tumor in my ankle grew large enough that it shattered my shin bone, my tibia. And my only recourse there was the amputation of my left leg right in the middle of a global pandemic. So that's kind of my cancer journey in a nutshell. And right now I'm actually dealing with tumors in my lungs, and I'm undergoing therapy for that as well.
And is that all part and parcel of it moving up through your body then?
Yeah, my doctor said, when I was first diagnosed, he said, wherever it is in your body, it's already there. I went 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years without it being detected in my lungs. But what he told me is it's always been in your lungs. It's just never been big enough for us to see. And, on a scan, you've got to have about 1 billion cells, which is about the size of a pea, a garden pea. And that's when we can start seeing this stuff. So if it's not bigger than that, you're not going to see it.
Wow. So where has this taken you in your journey then, coming to terms with all of this? Because you were in the sports world.
I was. I was a Division I college basketball player. I've been a police officer. I was a SWAT team hostage negotiator. I've done a lot of interesting things in my life, but I don't want your audience to think, because I'm going to give you some things and ways that I've kind of gotten through all this. But I'll tell you right now, there's no S on my chest. I do not wear a cape. I mean, when my friend told me that I had this disease, I cried, I was depressed, I was down. We're all going to experience those dark times in our life. And it doesn't have to be as bad as me as, with terminal cancer. You could flunk a test in school, or break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend, or have a fender bender on the way to work, whatever. We're all going to get into those dark places. We're all going to have pain in our life. Pain is inevitable. Suffering, on the other hand, that's optional. And suffering is determined by you. Do you want to sit in that gunk and that garbage and wallow in it and say, woe is me? Or do you want to get up and say, you know what? I learned something from that. That made me tougher. That made me stronger. And I'm going to move forward. I choose the latter. And it's a choice. It's a choice on how you handle all this stuff. And so, I have been through a lot of things in my life. And I think those things, athletics, law enforcement things, prepared me to kind of face my cancer.
Absolutely. Because you don't know what the end result's going to be. I mean, really and truly.
I mean, no, but yes.
You don't have a date.
No,
Like,
I don't have a date. Yeah, I
so
don't, and I don't worry about that. I mean,
no.
when I found out that I had the cancer in my leg, that it had broken my leg, and that I had tumors in my lungs, I went out to the cemetery with my wife, and I planned my entire funeral. And I got some pushback from that. I got people that were like, that's defeatist. And I kind of looked at them like, well, last time I checked, everybody's going to die. And, so I said, I don't think it's defeatist. I mean, everybody dies, but not everybody really lives. And I kind of felt, for me, it was a gift to my family. It's like, when I die, you make one phone call and everything's taken care of. When I graduated from college, I moved home, and I ended up living with my parents for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mom take care of my father and my grandmother, who were both living with us in the same house, both dying of different forms of cancer. And I remember, after each one of them died, we're exhausted, we're emotionally drained, and yet we've got to go to the church and plan the funeral. We've got to go to the cemetery. We've got to go to the funeral home. That was exhausting. What I've done is just, you make one call and it's all taken care of.
And you know why I tell people to be better prepared is because, like I say, taking that painful aftermath out of the tragedy, because you're not really you when it happens. I keep trying to tell people this. When something tragic happens, you're not really there. Your mind is somewhere else. Your adrenaline rushes. You couldn't probably even remember your name if you had to tell somebody your name. Like I'm thinking of a car accident or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly as a police officer, we're taught about, if you're involved in a critical incident, say a shooting, all the things that happen, your fine motor skills go away. So all you're left with is muscle memory. That's why we practice with our weapons. That's why we shoot so much.
Yeah.
You get tunnel vision. Your hearing goes away. I mean, all kinds of things in terms of your physical characteristics of your body happen that don't happen,
normally,
when you're just walking around. Exactly.
And I really I love how you talk, because bringing my daughters into softball, we would meet all of these Division I and Division II softball coaches. And it really gives you that strength. So obviously it's meant to be for you to heal others, help others, and give them that guidance through your coaching ability, through sports, through that knowledge that you've come to have. And it really is nice, because you have to look at it like sports can be a business, and sports can be a great motivational, inspirational piece that you can hold in your real life. And I really think it's coming through to what you do with both the police and the sports part.
Yeah, I used to tell my players, the only two things excuse me, that you can control on the basketball court are your attitude and your effort. Everything else is outside of your control. Whether shots go in, whether the referee has a bad night, whether the fans are young, whatever it is, the only thing you can control is your attitude and your effort. So if you're spending all your time on the court, getting mad because, somebody didn't pass it to you when you were open, or, I didn't foul that. That was a terrible call, ref, and stuff like that. You're totally out of your game, because, again, and, if you take that into life, your attitude and your effort are really the same thing in life. The only things that you really have any control over, you have no control whether you're going to get an accident on the way to work this morning, or whether, your colleague's going to take credit for your work at a meeting today. You have no control over any of that stuff.
No.
So your attitude and your effort are so important in life. And that's one thing I always drilled into my kids, attitude and effort. That's what it's all about. And sports, I think, teaches you to be part of something that's bigger than yourself. And in today's generation, you see a lot of what's in it for me. And when you're in a team sport, team athletics, you're part of something bigger than you. And, people rely on you. And if you don't step up and do the things that you're supposed to do, then a lot of times, not as a coach, but the team is going to come down on you. They'll be like, hey, knock it off. You need to step your game up. You're not being part of this team. You're not pulling your weight. And, that's true when you're in business. That's true when you're part of a family. That's true when you're part of a church or, a volunteer organization, whatever it is. So, that's a good lesson to learn very early in life.
Absolutely. I heard lots of coaches talk about hitting. So hitting a ball when you're at home plate isn't about the size of the person, isn't about their ability to hit the ball, really. I mean, it has technique, has a great advantage, but it's all about your attitude. And if you go up to that plate and you think you're not going to hit the ball, you're not going to hit the ball. So
yeah, one of the chapters, I wrote this book last year, and one of the chapters I wrote in it, and I thought it was so important, was most people think, and I know I've done this, most people think with their fears and their insecurities instead of using their minds. And that goes directly to what you just said. I mean, if you go up there and boy, I hope I get a walk, or I hope the guy hits me, or I hope I don't strike out. That's not, you're not saying to yourself, I hope I get a hit. I know I'm going to get a hit here. It's all how you look at things. And I know I've done it. And especially with young people, I always tell young people, if you have a passion in your heart for something, but it scares you, go ahead and do it. Because only two things can happen. One, you can win, you can be successful, or two, you can learn. And people always like, no, you can win or you can lose. No, you can win or you can learn. And if you learn, even if it's a business, start a business and it failed. Did you learn something? Yeah, I did. Okay. Can now maybe you start another business based on the knowledge that you gained from your first business and maybe be successful with that? So I always, that's one of the things that I always try to tell people, you've got to get out of your head. You've got to start thinking with your mind and not with your fears and your insecurities.
absolutely. I think our minds really love that fear. I call it the devil. Are we listening to the devil, or are we listening to, positivity and moving on and bringing that ability to take that challenge on? You have some good subjects that you've talked about in on your website, and wherever you are in life, look at the end game. What do you have to say about that?
So I guess maybe I should back up a little bit, because I think I've gotten through certainly this situation with cancer based on 4 things. 3 of them are what I call the 3Fs: faith, family, and friends. And then the 4th one is what I like to call my 4 truths. There used to be just 3, and I've added this one, and the one that I've added kind of goes to what you're asking me. And so I'll give them to you real quick. They're just one sentence each. The first one is, you need to control your mind, or your mind will control you. The second one is, you need to embrace the pain and the suffering that we all experience in life and use it to make you a stronger and more determined individual. And the third one, and this is the one that I've just added, is what you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of other people. And then the 4th one is, as long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. And I apologize for looking down, but I have these on a Post-it note right here on my desk, and I see them every single day. And that one you just asked me about, what you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of others. I always ask people to kind of think about the end game. What are people going to say about you at your funeral? What is your legacy in life going to be? What would your ancestors say about the life that you have lived? And if you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, wherever you are, if you think about the end game, if you think about your own death, and you don't like the answers to those questions, I don't like what people are going to say, he's a jerk. Well, you know what? You've got time now to make changes in your life to improve your life. And I'm not saying you should live for other people. I don't think you should. I think you kind of have to live the life that you were born to live. And if other people don't like that, that's their problem. But if you don't like what these people are saying about you, then you've got time to change it. But if you wait till the end of your life and say, gee, I never did anything with my life. I'm sour. I'm crass. I'm mad. I'm ugly. not ugly in a physical point of way, but you don't see the good in other people, then you know what? It's too late to make those changes at the end of your life. Make those changes now. Think about the end of your life, and it's going to help you have a better life today.
I really think that Kobe Bryant had a lot of these traits because he didn't worry about his own world in itself. He really did what you had mentioned about doing what you love, doing what you're passionate about, and the rest will all come.
It will, but that, again, it goes back to thinking with our fears and our insecurities. I am scared to do this. My passion had always been law enforcement. My grandfather was a Chicago police officer back in the days of prohibition and the gangs in Chicago of shooting up the town and stuff like that. And he was shot in the line of duty with his own gun. It was not a life-threatening injury. He was shot in the ankle, but my dad remembered the stories that my grandmother told about the knock on the door and, Mrs. Tucker, grab your son. Your husband's been shot. Come with us. So my dad had my whole life planned out. It's like, you're going to go to college and major in business. And when you get out, you're going to go into business. And that one, I didn't want to do that. My dad was living my life. That's not the life that I wanted to live. And, I was kind of between a rock and a hard place. My dad was sick. He was dying. And I didn't want to upset him, and I loved him. He was my hero. So I waited until he passed away before I pursued my dreams. But, if he hadn't been sick, we probably would have come, our relationship would have come to a head. It's like, Dad, I want to live my life. I don't want to live the life that you want me to live. And I know you're scared, and I know law enforcement is a kind of it's almost a nasty word right now, and it's a dangerous job and things like that. But Dad, that's what I was put on this earth to do. So let me go ahead and do it, and hopefully we'll have a positive outcome in the end. And if we don't, then just know that I lived my life doing what I was supposed to do, doing what God put me here to do.
Mm-hmm. And to know that you want that is one thing, because a lot of people don't. They don't know what their passion is.
They don't, and it's funny you should say that. One of the kind of the impetuses for writing my book was a conversation that I'd had with a former player that I'd coached who had moved to Colorado, and my wife and I had dinner with her and her boyfriend. And I said to her one night, I said, I'm really kind of glad you're here because now I can watch you kind of find and live your purpose. And she got real quiet for a while, and she looked at me and she said, well, Coach, what do you think my purpose is? I said, I don't know what your purpose is. That's what your life should be about, finding that purpose. And then once you find it, living it. I said, but remember this. I said, Colonel Harlan Sanders, who is famous for his Kentucky Fried Chicken chain, didn't start that restaurant until he was in his 60s, till after he retired. Now, I don't know if that was his purpose in life. My guess is that it was, but don't be concerned. Don't be afraid if, you get into your 20s or your 30s or your 40s and you haven't found that yet. Just keep searching for it. Keep searching for it with an open heart, because so many people get to a point and they just sort of throw up their hands and they're like, you know what? The heck with it. I'm just going to stay where I am. I'm going to, and we know these people. I call them dead. These are people that get up every morning, do the same thing, go to work, come home, watch TV, go to bed, and they do it over and over and over. Those people are dead because they're not growing. And you're either living or you're dying. And if you're not living, then you're dead. And I see it all the time. People just quit. And those are the people that at the end of their lives, they want another day or another week or another month because they never did anything with their life. They never spent the time to find their purpose, to live their uncommon and extraordinary life. So I told her, I said, don't worry if you don't find it right away. And she's like, well, what if I run out of time? I'm like, you know what? No. If God put you on this earth to do something, He's going to make, as long as you keep moving forward, as long as you keep an open heart and keep looking for it, He's going to give you the time to find it and to live it.
Absolutely. And I love that Katy Perry song, If You Have One Day Left, What Would You Do?
Yeah. And hopefully it's not anything that's so amazing, because that's what every day should be. You should spend every day as if, I may not have tomorrow. that's certainly the way I live. I may not have tomorrow, and I want to make sure that I say the things to the people, hey, I love you, and I care about you, and you're important to me, and let's talk and things like that. That's important to me, that kind of stuff. I've lost a foot, I've lost a leg, and I had a nurse ask me one time, it's like, how was that for you? And I said, well, it certainly wasn't easy by any means, but I am more than the sum of my parts. And there was a basketball coach back in 1993 by the name of Jim Valvano, who coached at North Carolina State University here in the States. And he won an award for courage. And he was at the ESPYs, the ESPN big award ceremony every year. And he had cancer and he was dying, and died about 8 months later. And he made this comment. He said, cancer can take all my physical abilities, but it can't touch my mind, it can't touch my heart, and it can't touch my soul. And I didn't understand that back then. I didn't have cancer back then. But now that I do, I get that. This is all window dressing. Who I really am is my heart, my mind, and my soul. Same with you. That's who you are. This is just a place to house those things until we move on to wherever we go after this.
Absolutely. I always say to people that in part of the emerging blueprint with your backup plan that's coming out soon, launching it soon, there's the 12th module is called the treasure box. And I always say to people, what are you going to put in that treasure box? Because what are you going to leave as a legacy to other people? Because I was at a funeral once, and he was only he passed away of cancer, and he was only in his 50s. And he had 2 young daughters who played softball. And I remember sitting in that funeral home, and I remember sitting in the celebration of life. And I cannot believe how it came to me, because I thought, here are those 2 girls. They know who their dad was, but their kids are not going to know who he was. And their kids are not going to know who he was. But you can change that. You can make an impact. It doesn't have to be money. You don't have to leave someone $1 million to leave a legacy. You can leave all sorts of wonderful, neat things. And you should be doing it. I say not every day, but you should be thinking about it all the time, because it's those moments. That's why we take pictures. That's why we make videos. That's why we write books. That's why we sing songs or play an instrument. If we're given those talents, whatever that looks like, writing story or writing a novel or whatever that looks like, we should be putting all of those things in our treasure box. And I talk about the 5 senses. So touching, feeling, all of those things that are going to touch our heart, because there's nothing more special after someone's passed away, for you to find that shirt that smells like your dad or smelled like your mom or whatever that looks like for you, or your partner, or that sock that they always wore with a mixed sock of something else, whatever that looks like. I always say there's that legacy that you can make that end game look however you want it to look. But it's taboo. It's taboo for us to talk about it.
It is, and I certainly, like I said, I had a lot of pushback when I planned my own funeral, and people, and I think part of that was fear. Part of that was, no, I don't want to think of you as not being here. I don't want to think of you as being in a casket, and I'm going to be entombed, not put in the ground in that. And so, but kind of when I look at people and I try to tell them, I feel that I have lived my purpose in life. I feel that God put me here for a reason. I found that purpose. I lived that purpose. So for me, the next step, and again, being someone of faith, believing in God, and I don't want to put my religion or my faith on anybody else. So, but for me, I am, and this is going to sound so weird and so ridiculous, but I'm almost excited to see what's on the other side of death. I'm not afraid of it to happen to me. I kind of use this analogy, and it's kind of a goofy analogy, but it's almost like, the Star Trek movies where, the navigator would look at Kirk and say, what course should I set? And Kirk just kind of looks at him and says, out there. I want to go out there. And that's where I want to go. I want to go out there and see whatever out there is. And it doesn't scare me. And I don't know why people are so afraid of death, because everybody's going to die. I mean, it happens every year. Winter comes, everything dies. And then in the spring, everything comes back. It happens every year. And yet we are so afraid of it. And I think it's because we don't spend the time here on this earth trying to find the reason God put us here and then live that reason. And if we do, death isn't as scary. At least that's what I've found.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially during COVID. Today, we have reached 25,000 deaths in Canada as of today. That's a lot of people.
It is. It is.
I don't know what the U.S. rate is. I should have looked that one up.
I think we're well over 500,000 people.
Yeah, and India, of course, is. I mean, we're all learning. You could get COVID and pass away, even being healthy.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason.
Well.
So I talk in my podcast all the time. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So pick up that phone and call somebody today, because you don't know what it's going to look like, and be prepared for the unexpected. But the problem is people don't know how to be prepared without it looking like you're, what do they call it? It's like, oh, well, I don't want to do a will because then it's fate.
Yeah.
Or
it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that I'm going to die. Yeah. Yeah. Guess what? You're going to die. Nobody gets out of this life alive. Sorry. Nobody's working on a cure for life right now. So,
we're trying with the young. We're trying to stay younger, but that's as far as it goes, people.
Well, I read somewhere that, people that are born today have a very, have a more than 90% chance of living to be more than 100 years of age. Well, and that's great. That's super, but that's, so they'll die at 100 instead of dying at 70. I mean, that's fine, but they're still going to die. Nobody gets out of this world alive, and that's okay. It's okay to die, and I wish people would realize that.
Well, I mean, there's so much unclaimed money because people aren't prepared. There's so many bank accounts that people have passed away and the family doesn't know about them, or properties or investments accounts or anything like that. And I always say, why? And they could be celebrities. I should do a show just on all the celebrities that knew that they should have had a plan in place, that knew they have a team of people to help them put that plan in place. Money is not an issue. Like Michael Jackson didn't have it all figured out when he died. He had started his trust accounts, but didn't put his properties into the trust accounts for his kids. So it became this big, huge mess, which should have never happened, especially in his situation. So any listeners out there, if you think I don't have the money, look, even celebrities have the money and they don't do it. So let's get our act together and get prepared for, and just do it over time. You don't have to rush into it and have it all done within a day. Like we're not saying that, but what you're saying is live life and be present and find your passion and put your plan together. Right?
Yeah,
that's really what you're saying.
That's exactly it. I mean, my wife and I have a will. I've done a will for my mom. I mean, you can get wills online. I mean, there's so much information about, planning for, whether it's, giving a power of attorney, a medical power of attorney for, if you're incapacitated, or, a durable power of attorney or financial power, whatever it is, somebody, that you trust. But it's funny when you read those online, I almost think, like if I made you my, my executor, but then they don't tell you anything. Yeah, you're my executor, but I don't tell you what my last wishes are, or I don't tell you where my accounts are, or I don't tell you where my safe deposit box is. I mean, it's kind of stupid to make you my executor without giving you the information that you need to carry out that duty. And so I do think it's funny when I read some of these and they list all, make sure you tell the person this. And it's like, I think that's kind of self-explanatory, but the fact that you have to put it on there, obviously it's not.
It's not. And it's even to the pain that nurses and doctors go with when you go to the hospital and you have to have surgery right away. And I can't. I have to go home and feed my cat, or I have to have someone go check on my dog. Or, I mean, come on, people. Like, even as little as where's the shed key or the garage key or the dog food or who the vet is, or all of these things are more than just the will.
Right.
And the will's
the
only
responsibility.
one little bit. Yeah.
What are you responsible for? And, what does, if you're not here, what does that look like? And how do you take care of that?
Yes. What would you say going through this was your wake up call? What was the point for you?
I think for me, it's just been a constant, I've really never had a break from this. It's just, I was on interferon for the 5 years. And then when I stopped that, the disease came back and then I lost my foot. And it just seems, and I realized pretty early on that I could handle so much more than I ever thought I could, and I don't know if there was one defining moment, when I was like, the light bulb went on. I just think it's been kind of a series of events over time, kind of the second truth that I gave you about, embracing the pain and suffering that we all face and use it to make you stronger. I mean, that's so foreign to how we're wired. I mean, our brains are wired to avoid pain and discomfort and to seek pleasure. But what I've learned is to take that pain, whatever it is, and to flip it and turn it inside and burn it as fuel or use it as energy to make me stronger and more determined. So instead of running from it, I just take it. And again, I have no S on my chest. I have no cape, that I wear. It's just something that, and I'll be honest with you, when I was a little kid and I knew my mom was taking me to the doctor for the pediatrician for a vaccine, I'd wait till she got out of the car and I'd lock all the doors from the inside. That's how afraid I was of getting a vaccine. And now, as part of my clinical trial, there are days where I will get stuck with a needle maybe 14 or 15 times in the space of just one day. And I always love nurses, when there's, if I'm hurting you, let me know. You're sticking a needle in me. It doesn't feel good, but keep doing what you're doing. It's necessary. But I just love that when they say that. It's like, what, do you think this doesn't hurt? Yes, it hurts. But you just take that pain. Instead of running from it, you use it. It makes you stronger. It makes you tougher. It makes you more determined. Because if I can do it, anybody who's listening to us can do it.
Especially from needle point of view.
Yeah, exactly.
Because a lot of people are really scared of shots.
And needles. I was. But again, you can get over that. It's a mental thing. You just have to realize that every day you go out, every day you've got to go to the doctor, every day, and like I said, next Monday, I'll start my next round of treatment. And Sunday, I'll be like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go, so don't think I don't get into those dark places. I do. But I know damn well that I'm going to get up Monday morning at 4:00 and I'm going to go to the hospital and I'm going to spend all day there feeling lousy and doing all kinds of ugly, nasty things because of the drugs that I'm on. But that's okay. It's okay. You can just flip that switch. And I'm not saying it's easy, but you can do it. Don't think, oh, I could never do that. I hate people that say that. I could never do what you do. Yeah, you're right. Because you know what? You've already decided that you can't do it. I'm trying to remember the saying. It's like, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And that's
goes back to sports again.
I mean, it does. You can do anything you put your mind to. And I, as a policeman and certainly as somebody who's been dealing with cancer, I am amazed at how much damage the human body can handle and continue to progress and continue to move forward. So don't think, I've got to have my, whatever, I got to have my appendix out or my gallbladder out. I guarantee you, millions of people have that every day. It's not as big of a deal, but because it's you're in your head. You're totally in your head, and that's the worst place you can be. If you can't control your mind's going to put all kinds of negative thoughts in there. And if you can't flip those thoughts into something positive, you're going to be miserable.
That's for sure. So bringing it back to sports, I picture you as this basketball coach that says, okay, guys, we have to get, so many points. I'm going to pick the first person that's going to get off this bench and is going to say, I can do it, Terry, I can do it. You're certainly not going to pick that kid off the bench that says, I don't know if I can do it.
It's funny you say that. I had a player one day, and I'd never had this as when I was playing or when I was coaching. One day I looked down the end of the bench and I pointed to a player and I'm like, go in for so-and-so. And I turned around and, was watching the game. And I look over at the scores table and there's nobody standing there. And I look around and I'm like, get in the game. And I coached girls and she was like, no. Like, what do you mean no? I'm like, come here. And she's got tears running down her. I'm like, you work your butt off every day in practice. And now you have an opportunity to play in the game and you're telling me no. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? There are no uniform wearers on this team. You're either part of this team and I need you to contribute. Now, just do the best you can. I'm not asking you to score 30 points in 10 minutes. I'm just asking you to go out there and help your team. And it took forever for me to talk somebody into going into the game. And I thought, oh my God, you work every day in practice, and my practices were extremely hard, and yet the reward is to play in the game. And you're like, no, coach, I don't want to go in the game. I'm like, what? I didn't know what to do with that. I was just you don't want to play. You want to practice, but you don't want to play. Yeah, I don't want to play. Well, she ended up going into the game in that, and she was fine after that. But it was just like, she was definitely in her head. And I talked to her afterwards, and I'm like, why didn't you want to go in the game? I was afraid I was going to make a mistake. I'm like, I know you're going to make a mistake. I mean, that's why we practice. So we limit those mistakes. If everybody was perfect, we wouldn't need to practice. We'll just go play games.
Yeah.
And, and I said, well, my family was there and my friends were there and I might make a mistake. I said, look, you come every single day after school for 2 hours and we work really hard. Those people that are watching you in the stands, they're at home, eating popcorn and watching television. You're making the sacrifice for your school and your teammates. That's all you need to worry about. This is your family here. I know that's your family in the stands, but this is your family as well, and they're counting on you. And she was like, I never thought about it that way. Well, think about it, because they need you. And when I ask you to go in the game, I said, if this happens again, you're off the team, because I'm not going to have you just wearing a uniform and taking up space. I think you deserve to be in the game. If I didn't think you did, I wouldn't play it. And, we never had a problem after that. But
yeah,
as a coach, that was the most difficult thing I ever faced, especially in the middle of a game. I'm like, oh my God, now I got to do a counseling session. I got to watch the game, it's like. So.
Oh, I've seen it in softball many times.
Sure. Yeah.
When somebody, comes up to bat and the coach says, hey, you're in, you're out. And the next person comes in out to go and hit for them. And they're like, but that's your time to shine.
Yeah.
That's your time to show all that practicing that you've been doing. It's just like life. It's your time to be that passionate self and bring all those tools out of the toolbox that you've had tied up in your back pocket.
Right.
So
yeah, it's a game. Just go play the game. It's not life and death. It's a basketball game. Nobody's going to care tomorrow whether we won or lost. And that's one thing I always ask my players. I said, I don't care about the score. I know that sounds bad as a coach, but if you give me 100%, all of you, and we lose, I'm good with that. But if you give me 50% and we win, I'm not good with that. I'm not good with that unless you're giving me 100%. And if you do that, I could care less what the score is. But I know what your 100% is. I know what you're capable of because I see it in practice. So don't try to shortchange me because I'm dumb, but I'm not that dumb. I'll know when you're not giving me 100%.
You can't fool me.
You're right.
So because we're talking about sports and family and everything, how does this change your life with your family and friends around you? Because it doesn't just affect you.
No.
It affects everyone.
It does. And, my wife is Norwegian by heritage, which should tell you something about, but the funny thing about my wife is she had never seen the inside of an emergency room before we were married. And, I mean, and she got to the point where literally I was having a chunk cut out of the bottom of my foot in an outpatient procedure. And she is down at the end of the table talking to the surgeon as she's doing her thing, and I thought, no way that would have happened when we first got married and stuff. So when I did get cancer, our daughter was in high school, and my wife and I made a conscious decision to never lie to her. And, we told her things, obviously age appropriate for a high school student. Now she's an adult and, and is totally involved in this. And, it's kind of funny. When I found out about the tumors in my lungs, my oncologist wanted to start me on chemotherapy. And I just didn't think I wanted to do that. I thought, no, that's not something I really want to do. And I came home and I told my wife and I told my daughter, and my daughter's immediately, all right, we got to have a family meeting. There's 3 of us. I mean, it's not like there's a team here. There's 3 of us. We got to have a family meeting. We have a family meeting. We kind of talk about it for a while. And then my daughter's like, all right, let's take a vote. How many people want dad to have chemotherapy? And she and my wife raised their hand, and I'm like, I got outvoted 2-1, and now I got to go have chemotherapy. And literally, that's kind of how it was. I mean, it wasn't quite like that, but it pretty much was. We're going to take a vote. We want you to have chemotherapy. And, it's funny. When I was in the police academy, the gentleman who taught us defensive tactics, how to defend ourselves, he used to have us bring a photograph of the people we love the most to class. And while we were learning these different techniques, we were to look at that photograph because he reasoned that you will fight harder for the people you love than you will fight for yourself. And he wanted you to realize that at 3:00 in the morning, when you're fighting some drunk guy and he pulls out a knife, that there are people, your wife, your spouse, your daughter, your mom or dad, whoever, this is bigger than you. This isn't just about you. There are people who want you to come home. And, yes, you understand that as a policeman, but you certainly understand that when you have a family and you get cancer. And my wife, there's no doubt in my mind, I would be dead several times over if I hadn't had my wife there and she hadn't noticed something or said, well, maybe we should do this instead of that. And so I am incredibly grateful for my family. Now, my friends, I'll be honest with you, I kind of lost a few friends when I got cancer. And I think a lot of that was fear. People were, it scares me. If people don't want to be in your life, you shouldn't spend a lot of energy trying to get them into your life. That's up to them. I would like you to be part of this. You don't want to be part of it. That's fine. I've got other things to worry about. But the thing that really kind of upset me was the people that, and I've done this, so, I have no room to talk, but the people would be like, hey, Terry, you need anything, let me know. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm going to go in and have my leg amputated. Guess what? The things that you have done at your house, the garbage needs to go out, the grass needs to be cut, the dog needs to be walked, grocery shopping needs to be done. All the stuff you're doing at your house, I need done at my house. And yet I'm going to go through this. And maybe it's something joyous. They're going to go have a baby or something like that. You don't sit on the sidelines and watch the game and pretend you're playing, because you're not. After I had my first surgery, I did not have to stay in the hospital. I was allowed to go home when I woke up, and I'd been at home about 10 minutes, and my 93-year-old, one of my best friends, my cell phone rings, and it's him. His name was Bud. Bud's like, Terry, I know you just got home from the hospital. Can I come over for 10 minutes? I'll just be like, yeah, sure, Bud. Come on over. About 15 minutes later, here comes my 93-year-old buddy walking through the front door with a fully cooked chicken that he had bought at Costco and a pan of cream cheese Danish. And he's like, here, you've got food for dinner tonight and breakfast, food for breakfast in the morning. He didn't ask what I needed. He just got involved and said, you know what? Here's some food for you, And if people would do that and not kind of, hey, if you need anything, let me know. Now you just took yourself off the hook. No, not really, because you're not helping me at all. I don't have time to think of ways that you can help me. But all the things you need done at your house are the same things I need done at my house. So just show up and cut the grass, or say, hey, I'm going to take the dog for a walk, or hey, I'll take your garbage cans out tonight, whatever it is.
Yeah, even a neighbor or a friend or anything.
Exactly. Right.
So is your daughter on her own now, or is she still with you?
Our daughter is a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy. So she's in the military. Actually, she's in the new branch of the military of the United States, just started the Space Force. So she actually, we're very fortunate. She works in the same town that we live in right now.
Oh.
So it's great. And she's around to help us and stuff like that. That'll probably change by the end of the year. And she'll be probably down in Florida. But yeah, I mean, it's great having her here. But everything she does in the military is all top secret. So conversations are, how was work? Great. What happened? I can't tell you about it. Okay. So they're very short.
But you understand that better than anybody.
I totally do. Absolutely.
So, what would you say for helping others to create that legacy? What would you say to people what to do with that? What do you do?
So it's kind of like people ask me, sometimes when I do these podcasts, how do you want to be remembered? And in all honesty, I don't have any great interest in being remembered. Nobody's going to name a street after me or a building or anything like that. But what I think you should do, and what I'm going to try to do with whatever amount of time that I have left, is to put as much love, goodness, and positivity back into the world. And that's for every person you come in contact with. I always ask people that if they will do me one favor, for the next 30 days, everybody you come in contact with, imagine that they'll be dead tomorrow. So the person who cuts you off in traffic, or the person who, takes credit for your work, at the office, or even, your 16-year-old who's driving you nuts. Imagine that they'll be dead tomorrow. Because if you do that, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to have a whole lot less stress in your life. And two, you're going to have a greater appreciation for the people that are around you. So I think that's something I always ask people to do, because like you said, you never know. Tomorrow's not guaranteed for any of us. And we see tragedies all the time. So put as much love, as much goodness, as much positivity back in the world. And if you do that, I'm not going to be remembered. But if I do that to somebody else, maybe they'll turn around and do it to somebody else, and they'll do it to somebody else. And maybe we'll have a better world. Because I can't imagine standing in the presence of our Creator, whoever or whatever you believe that entity to be, and being unable to account for the gifts and the talents that I was born with and that I didn't use to make the world a better place.
With love and kindness.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Did you want to end it on that note, or would you like to say something else with your?
I'll tell you one. Note? I'll tell you one more story.
I'd like you to also, after the story, to tell us about your book.
Sure. So I've always been a big fan of Western movies, kind of cowboys and Indians here and that. And my parents used to let me stay up late to watch, Gunsmoke or Wild Wild West and stuff like that. But in 1993, the movie Tombstone came out, and you may have seen it. Kurt Russell played a guy by the name of Wyatt Earp, and Val Kilmer played a man by the name of John Doc Holliday. Now, Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday were two living, breathing human beings that actually walked on the face of the earth. They were not made up characters for the movie. And in the very end of the movie, Doc was, they called him Doc because he was a dentist by trade, but he was pretty much a card shark and a gunslinger. And Wyatt had been a lawman his entire life. So these two men from, entirely different backgrounds had formed this great friendship. But at this point in the movie, Doc is dying at a sanitarium in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. And the real Doc Holliday did die at that sanitarium. It's about 3 hours from our house. And Wyatt, at this point in his life, is destitute. He has no money. He has no job. He has no prospects for a job. So he comes every day to play cards with Doc just to pass the time. And the two men are talking about what they want out of life. And Doc says, when I was younger, I was in love with my cousin, but she joined a convent over the affair, but she's all that I ever wanted. And he looks at Wyatt and he says, what about you, Wyatt? What do you want? And Wyatt says, I just want to lead a normal life. And Doc looks at him and says, there's no normal, there's just life. Get on with living yours. And I think that's a story I like to end with, because, we're all kind of waiting for that. If this happens, then I'll do this. Or if that happens, I'll do that. Don't wait. There's no, normal life. There's just life, the life that you have now. And use that life, find your purpose, live your purpose, because when you get to the end of your life like I am, you're going to be a whole lot happier than if you didn't find it.
That's for sure. And tell us about your book.
So the book is called Sustainable Excellence, the 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. It's a book that was born out of two stories. One I already told you about, my former teammate. Another one was a young college student who connected with me on LinkedIn and said, what are the things I need to know to not only be successful in business or my job, but in life in general? And I didn't want to give him the, get up early, work hard, help others. Not that those aren't important. They are, but they've been done. And so I spent some time writing some notes, and eventually I had these 10 principles. And so I sent them to him. And then I stepped back and I was like, I've got a life story that emulates that principle, or I know somebody's life who emulates that principle. So literally between the time I was diagnosed, or the time I was had my surgery to remove my leg, and the time I started chemotherapy for the tumors in my lungs, was about 3 months. I sat down at the computer and I took those 10 principles and I just built stories underneath them. And then I had this book, and I was all excited about it. I've got to sell books and stuff like that. And I had somebody tell me that, Terry, you wrote this book to help people. So your job is to help people, not to sell books. If you help people, your books will sell themselves. So I was so glad he told me that, and, kind of hit me in the face with it. And now it's, I wrote the book to make a difference, not to get famous, not to get rich. And so really now it's all about, can people use that book to make their life better? And I had an 87-year-old man buy the book, read it, and get in touch with me. And he said, if I would have had these principles when I was younger, I would have had a much better life. I thought, well, maybe the book's going to do people some good.
Absolutely. How can it not?
I hope.
Absolutely. I will make sure that the book links are down below in the description box for our listeners as well. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No, thank you very much for allowing me to be on your show. It's been a lot of fun for me.
Oh, I can't say I'm honored to have you on, Terry.
Thank you.
I truly am, and appreciate your knowledge, your wealth of knowledge, your sincerity, your bravery, and your courage comes out.
Thank you.
And that's what people want.
Yeah, I think that's what people need. And like I said, I should probably be dead by now, but I just, honestly, I just don't think God's done with me yet. So he's keeping me around to try to tell my story. And like I said, hopefully we're going to make a difference in somebody's life today.
Absolutely. And you're going to have another book.
I hope so.
Of how your journey has been. I'm sure you're not done yet, Terry. You're not done yet. I want to thank our listeners. I want to thank Terry Tucker from beautiful Denver area today for our listeners. What an amazing podcast. What an amazing interview with Terry. I think it's for anybody. It could be someone in the healthcare industry. It could be the average person that works 9 to 5. It could be someone in sports. It could be someone in business. Your thought process helps everybody in whatever stage of life that they're in. And that's really important. And it's lovely how you've embraced that and can tell stories around it. It's beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you.
I wish we were taught more about this in school, but we're not. So we're out there, Terry and myself are out there telling people to embrace life and to do what you can today for the unknown tomorrow. That's really what we are here for. And I want to thank Terry again for coming to our show and our interview. We will definitely have him come back and tell us some more good stuff. I'm sure he'll have more for us at some point. So don't feel that it's the one-time show. It's not. Terry will be back. I can feel it. So the lesson about emergency planning, Brené Brown says, everyone has a story that will bring you to your knees, especially Terry's. And he's the survival guide for someone that we can help today, that listens to this show today. He is the survival guide. His book is their survival guide for others to live their life the best that they can. And so I appreciate that. And I will make sure that the links are down below. So thank you, listeners. I always end our podcast with Carol Burnett. because she was fearful. She was loving and full of laughter of life. And so I want to thank Carol Burnett for being who she is, because it's made an impact on all of us with her show and her comedy. It's just been beautiful. So I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just get started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long. So long, everybody. So long to our listeners. Danke fürs Hören, meine deutsche Freunde auch. Thank you to my German listeners. I want to thank everyone for coming out. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel down here somewhere below, and like, share, pass this on to other people that Terry can help, that Terry can give that inspiration to. I really appreciate it. Terry would appreciate it as well. And I'm sure your friends and family would appreciate it also. So thank you. Thank you for coming to our show today. Thank you, your Backup Plan Tribe. And till next time, stay safe. Lots of love. Till next time. Bye.